The film opens with a young boy getting his hair trimmed off by a tattooed man. The scenes cut to a minority-hating cult heading to a rally against the anti-fascists. The two groups begin fighting each other. A young black kid runs away from there, but our lead, Brian Widner, and his group member go after him. They beat him up and cut his face before running away. Up next, Brian is seen in his tattoo shop giving tattoos to a girl named April he later casually hooks up with. In Brian's next social event, a little girl named Iggy gets fascinated with his dog and starts petting it. Brian finds her cute and talks to her, but Iggy's mother and sisters show up there and take her away. In the event, the group's leaders, Fred, also known as Hammer, and Shireen, address how minorities such as black people and Muslims should be kicked out of America. They then call Iggy and his sisters on stage to sing a song. Another tattooed man laughs at the little girls and throws a soda can at them. Their mother, Julie, becomes scared and takes the girls away from there. Brian strangles the man for disrespecting the girls and scares them away.
Jerry.
Brian walks the girls to their car, where Iggy asks to be photographed with Brian and his dog.
Smile.
Brian gives Julie his business card in case she ever returns to their town. Later that night, April imposes herself on Brian and forces him to make love to her. He ends up pushing her out of his place. Suddenly, he vomits and faints. In another scene, we see the beginning of Brian's journey to remove all of his tattoos. In the current timeline, the FBI raids his place and brings him back to the headquarters to strike a deal, in which he gets to live under their provided safety in exchange for ratting out his entire cult. He starts getting undressed instead and gets escorted by the security. On the other hand, we see the leader of the One People's Project, Daryl. He is planning on filming and putting Brian's footage on YouTube to expose his atrocities, whereas his apprentice suggests cutting his face just as he did to their member, Lonnie. Back on Brian's side, he walks out of the police department after his bail. Lonnie's mother approaches him and begins hitting him, besides saying hurtful things to him. Since Brian feels guilty, he doesn't flinch or retaliate. The cops take the woman away, while Hammer takes Brian back in his car. Hammer stops by a junkyard and recruits a young kid named Gavin for their Vinlanders club. They all return to their home, where Shireen welcomes them. Inside, Shireen shaves Gavin's head, while Brian showers and drinks beer simultaneously. He peeks out the window and finds out a rebellious group from their club messing with his dog. He runs out and beats the men when they refuse to leave his dog alone. Hammer shows up with his rifle and resolves their fight by imposing taxes on those who create troubles.
Why'd you do it? Give me a straight answer.
Slayer has dishonored himself again.
And his Vinlander brothers. Because Slayer is a worthless, fathead fuck sack of shit.
Later, Brian calls Julie and asks to see her in person, to which she agrees. Now, Brian sets off on a long drive to visit Julie. Meanwhile, Julie's landlord shows up outside and bothers her for performing at hate rallies. Brian ignores this and greets Julie. He gives her beer and a toy dog for Iggy that just looks like his real dog. Julie goes inside to put an oxygen mask on Iggy before sleep. She then invites Brian in. Julie initiates the conversation by talking about a tattoo that she regrets because her ex had given it to her. Brian offers to fix it since he's a tattoo artist. Julie asks him about his tattoos, which leads Brian to talk about how he was neglected by his severely drunkard parents and ended up on the streets, from where Hammer adopted him and helped get him independent. Soon, romance sparks between the two, and they make out. In another timeline, we see Brian's day 4 of removing his knuckle tattoos. Currently, Julie brings her girls to Brian's tattoo shop, where Brian scares them by wearing fake fangs and scratching their car windows. The eldest daughter, Desiree, isn't happy about her mother's growing relationship for some reason. Brian gives the girls welcome presents and takes them inside their tattoo shop.
Oh, it's so cute. What are you doing, man? What are you doing? You guys want to go surfing?
She likes it.
Desiree wants an adult tattoo, but Julie doesn't allow her. To make it up to them, Brian hands them fake sticker tattoos, but Desiree gets mad at him for touching her and leaves. While Desiree smokes outside, Brian gives the little girls something to draw on and fixes Julie's tattoo. He asks Julie why she left her ex. She reveals that she caught him beating Desiree, which is why she sacrificed dating for her kids. Outside, Shireen approaches Desiree and finds out about who she is. She offers the little girl a joint to smoke to give her a taste of freedom when Desiree says her mother doesn't allow her to smoke. On the other hand, we see the other girls having fun with Brian, who's driving them around on a sofa attached to his truck. A few months later, he brings Julie and the girls to his club's Halloween party, where they're all in costumes and have their faces painted. On their way to the house, Daryl tries filming them while teasing Brian about turning good before his girlfriend and kids leave her. Brian pushes him out of the way and joins the party, where Shireen gives the little girls candies and warns Julie how fast Brian switches from one girl to another. When the night falls, April comes at Julie and fat shames her. This turns into a cat fight, which Brian fails to break up. Scenes cut directly to Brian driving Julie and the girls back to his place. Julie sends the girls in and tells Brian she cannot jump into such a life Brian is living because she wants a better life for her girls. Brian promises he won't let anything happen to his girls and expresses how he wants her, which convinces Julie. Brian helps Iggy take off paint from her face, during which she tells him Desiree thinks he's evil. When he takes off his paint, his tattoos start showing up, which makes him uncomfortable for the first time. Hammer calls him in the middle of the night for a job. He slowly tries to sneak out, but Julie wakes up and sees him leaving. She lashes out at him and wakes up the girls. Brian tries to explain that his work changes nothing between them, but Julie drives away with the girls.
Hey! You have to trust somebody at some point, you know that?
Yeah, sure as our pain started with you.
Now, he joins Hammer and the others. They take him to light up a mosque. While dousing the place with kerosene, Brian comes across a room full of people sleeping. He quietly signals them to leave before they set fire. After setting fire to the mosque, Brian returns home, sick and ashamed. He phones Daryl from a public phone booth to seek help. Scenes cut to Julie and her girls packing and leaving their place. But Brian shows up with his dog and some luggage, swearing that he's left everything behind. Meanwhile, we see day 145 of Brian getting his forehead tattoos removed. He dreams about Lonnie setting him on fire, which devastates him. Currently, Julie accepts him and marries him in a courtroom where the girls sing for them. He goes for a desk job interview, but they hesitate to recruit him since he's on the FBI watch list. They end up giving him a bottom-of-the-barrel job, which is basically shoveling snow. His hands nearly freeze during the job, but an old fellow worker lends him a pair of gloves out of courtesy. One day, Brian returns home from work and becomes startled to see Hammer's van parked outside his home. When he walks inside, he finds the entire Vinlander Club present at his place. Shireen takes a look in the refrigerator and makes fun of Julie, which turns into a heated debate. Brian politely excuses them and goes out with Julie. He tells her to take the girls to school and stay away while he settles this. Inside, Hammer accuses him of sparing the illegals at the mosque and snitching on them because the FBI is jeopardizing their movement right now. He swears he has nothing to do and asks to be left alone, but Slayer lashes out at him. Shireen sends everyone out and emotionally manipulates him into returning, claiming that she is scared of what's going to happen to his girls. He ends up leaving with them. They take him to a car junkyard where they've already beaten and tied up the illegals in a car. They ask Brian to kill them, But when he refuses to do so, Slayer beats him up and stabs the illegals himself. When Brian retaliates, Slayer shoots him. Hammer orders the boys to bring Brian back while burning the illegals, but Slayer rebels against him, expressing how he hates Hammer's authoritative attitude. He decides to shoot him, but Gavin shoots him from behind first. Hammer praises him and insults the others for not standing up. On their way back, April grows a soft spot for Brian and calls Julie to let her know his whereabouts. Meanwhile, Hammer tortures the unconscious Brian at the hospital by lowering his oxygen levels in order to find out how much he has told the FBI. When he sees Brian's helpless, he leaves with Shireen. Julie finally shows up by his side. He asks for a pen and doodles something on her hands. It turns out he asked her to call Daryl because we see Daryl meeting them at a diner. He assures the girls' safety and education, but in return, he wants Brian to fully cooperate with the FBI. He also breaks the news about his people arranging a rich anonymous lady to pay for Brian's tattoo removal expenses in exchange for some stories. Before leaving, he hands Brian the address of a motel far away from here to stay discreet. Brian returns to his house with Julie and the girls. While the girls sleep, they decide to pack things and free their dog. Suddenly, someone opens fire from all 4 directions, so Julie helps the girls get into a bathtub. Brian takes out his gun and shoots back from the window. When the gunfire stops, he runs to the girls and comforts them besides Julie. The next day, he walks out to see if someone's still there, but only finds his dog killed. Julie gives him emotional support and helps bury the dog. They all leave for the motel in their car. That's labeled traitors by the Vinlanders. At the motel, Brian gets so paranoid he doesn't even let Julie receive calls. Desiree goes out to swim in the pool because she's bored. When Brian looks at a specific tattoo on her arm, he goes after her and tries to ask where she got it from. She tries to push him away instead of explaining, which causes a great scene. A man tries to push him away from Desiree, but he ends up beating him up until Julie shows up and breaks up his fight. Brian tries to explain to her about the tattoo and that Desiree may be involved with the Vinlanders, but Julie pushes him away to defend her girls. He drives away in devastation and tries to crash into a car coming from the front, but the car moves. He then meets up with Daryl, who takes him to the FBI headquarters, where his tattoo removal journey begins. Meanwhile, the FBI raids the Vinlanders and shoots Gavin for attempting to run away. At last, we see Brian's tattoos getting lighter over time, and finally getting permanently removed. After 615 days, Daryl helps him get back to the real world. He ends up outside Julie's place, who attends the door holding their newborn son. As Brian breaks into tears, the film ends. I am sure you liked the story recap. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps like that.